Switch my bishop and knight.
You guys can start whenever you want.
I'll give me 1 minute.
All right. Here, I'm gonna open up the questions. So what I'm gonna do is we'll do like a brief introduction.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And then we'll just roll into the first question. And then I'm not gonna follow these questions in order. I'm just gonna kind of bounce off your responses, and there might be like an additional question off of that, and then go into the next, like kind of pull you back out, going down the rabbit hole on it, and then go into the next one. But
He said it's okay, just don't mind me.
don't get in the way of the camera.
Okay, dale, I'm not here.
But
Let me just.
that's kind of the way that I'm thinking about it. Is if we,
Okay.
you know, just
Light intro.
Mhm.
You're introing, or we describing what we do, or
Yeah, I'll introduce you guys as like the experts in your space, and then you just kind of give like, you know,
all right, it's like
like a little background
elevator.
on it. Yeah.
Elevator. Okay. So elevator.
Yeah, like,
Elevator pitch. What we?
yeah.
you
Elevator
do what
means
I do.
30 seconds, not 30 minutes.
Yes, sir.
This is a time to pull a Scott.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yep, I'm Scott. I'm here. Have a great day.
All right. You guys ready?
Wait. Cell phones, guys. Everybody's cell
I
phones.
just turned mine on silent.
Okay.
Let's put this here.
Okay. Just wanted to see that last stat that I wanted. It's crazy.
Does Aaron Judge's home run count?
Oh man.
It's 35.
Oh man.
Batting average 354. Just in case you wanted to know. It's called greatness.
Just greatness. It's like that, huh?
Yeah, when you're 6'7", 270, and you lead the league in hitting, second in home runs, and first in RBI, it's
It's crazy.
pretty great.
Well, let me see if I can keep my screen open. Display.
Oh, with the questions and stuff.
So are you answering the questions that you put out, and I'm answering the questions I put out?
I think it was gonna be kind of like a. You know what I mean?
No, I
Chris-
know, but a
Chris,
lot of
were
the
you gonna
questions.
do-
You guys can kind of bounce off of each other on how you want to respond. I'm going to ask the question in general, and if you feel like you're more equipped on the sales side to talk about it, or you're more technologically savvy on it,
Okay.
you guys can figure that
like the
part out.
battery questions,
So
they're
I'll
all
lean,
you.
I'll lean more towards generator battery, how does it work type stuff.
Yeah.
A
And
lot
then
of it's gonna-
statistics of the state.
I'm
and
going to
then
hit.
maybe he can hit hand on.
Only thing I want you guys to focus on is keeping it layman. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, just layman terms. Like, if I'm the dumb homeowner who's over here speaking for every homeowner, you know what I mean? Like, I just need to know what's important to me. Like, my request, like, that's what matters. You know? So it's like, if you can condense your professionalism in that sense, and then Scott, if you cannot have such a short answer, but it like thoroughly.
I'll answer questions just like I just answered Solar Edge versus Enphase to you.
I
Yes.
know you've been watching Robot with Mr. Robot. So
That's a good show, dude.
That's dope, ain't it?
That show's
I
fun.
never watched it till it was on Netflix. too.
Okay. You guys ready?
Yeah,
All right,
let's
yeah,
do it.
We're ready to rock,
Okay.
brother.
All right. Well, we're here today with some of the solar experts here. My name is Chris Bostic. For those of you that don't know, you know, I've been in the construction space over 20 years, and just a few short years ago, I had the chance to reconnect with a old friend of mine from childhood and reconnect with a professional I worked with over a decade prior, and they are both experts in the solar industry, and it's such a unique space to be involved in at this time. We know solar is like such a it's such a state-of-the-art technology, but there's so many holes. There's so many holes in the whole entire, you know, operation, the sales and its uses. But you guys are the forefront, especially here in the state of Florida, for everything that solar stands for. So today you got Mr. Zach England and Mr. Solar Scott Summers. And if you guys could just, you know, give us a little background about yourself. Like, how'd you guys get into the industry?
The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Chris Bostic. First of all, man, thank you. Thank you just for, you know, being able to create a space where we can, all of us kind of be here and actually elaborate on things that we love to tell our customers, but we don't want to hit them with information overload. So I feel like this is a great opportunity for us to kind of peel back the veil and to allow them to see conversations that we have about what's going on in this industry. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Basically, I'm pretty simple. I'm just a kid that had a dream, and for whatever reason, I've been blessed with being able to have a testimony that I've been able to basically be in the solar space, in the renewable or sustainable construction space for 21 years. I don't know how the years went by that fast, but they did. And I know it sounds kind of crazy that I've been doing and working on that technology that long, but I have, and it was mainly just through volunteering back in the day. I hate to say back in the day, and it's only 20 years. We're not that old
Yeah,
here.
we're not that old. Don't throw us out there like that, man.
Try not to date us here, okay? But yeah, it's very, 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 very humbling to see things that I dreamed of as a kid. Growing up in Southwest Florida, via somewhere else like everybody is in most of Florida, right? Midwest kid, and got to come down here and really grow and flourish and be a part of something that I didn't know was going to take off the way that it did. In my dreams, this industry, I thought maybe 2035, 40-ish, the industry would start to finally get a little wind underneath its wings. And thank God, for a blessing where someone like Scott over here was able to kind of give me a little bit of a boot in the butt and give me a little motivation to kind of come back in. And he actually didn't know how many years I had already been working in the space.
Yeah, trust me, the way you guys branded yourselves around the industry, it's safe to say like you're kind of yin and yang when it comes to how you operate. You being on the technical side with thousands of installs at this point, and then Scott just being in the field and branding himself around the sales of it on all different facets. I mean, you've been in this game a long time, and we respect what you've done in the space. You probably know it better than anybody I personally encountered out of all the professionals, especially from the install. Like, I always like to joke with you and say, your ideal Friday night is onion rings and, extracurricular solar activity, but it's the truth because you're really that passionate about it, But
that's kind of sad.
It's not sad. It's a good thing. We need those kind of experts in the space.
It's a little sad.
Yeah, but Scott, what about you, man? Like, how did you get into the solar space?
So my dream wasn't to be in solar. My dream was actually to play baseball, but obviously it didn't work out. I'm born and raised here in South Florida, and in 2014 I got exposed to solar. And for me, being in the deregulation space and praying that it was going to come to Florida, but it never did, then I saw solar and I was like, wow, we live in the Sunshine State. This is an opportunity to be ahead of the curve, to get out in front of it. And I decided to, and I did a lot of research on my own. Went down rabbit holes and figured things out and spoke to engineers and tested proposals and finally figured out what I wanted to do. And then we started a company, and then everything went from there.
Wow. That kind of sounds like all us homeowners. We just kind of do our own research and go down the rabbit hole of Google and search engines like that, and we end up finding a whole bunch of confusion. How were you able to kind of get in the field?
There really wasn't anybody back 10 years ago, 11 years ago, that was there to help. It was more of like solar water heaters, and I didn't want to sell solar water heaters. I wanted to sell solar panels. They were very expensive. The efficiencies weren't very high, and so it's almost like a blur. We were just doing so much research and testing things out, and just after a while, just things started to click.
Wow. Okay. I love that. And, today, I think our biggest focus for everybody out here is to understand there has been a lot of changes that have happened in the industry, and a lot of confusion has happened among so many different marketplaces. You guys have been able to amass not just a business here in the state of Florida, but you've been able to tackle this across the nation, and you've seen all the changes, and they're not happening like 20 years ago where we had time to kind of catch with the wave and adjust with the changes. It's every 30 days it seems like there's a new hurdle to overcome. And today I'm going to kind of ask what the homeowners have been asking about, and just if you guys can help give them clarity and give them answers based off your expertise, I think it would immensely help them understand why solar
Absolutely
is for them. Okay, so
Absolutely.
One of the first questions that we got, and this is a pretty common one, right? Because, you know, I seen it personally in my neighborhood where there was a lot of people knocking doors and, you know, fly-by-night companies. There was all these guys where, I mean, no offense to the younger kids on Segways, we all got to hustle. I sold vacuum cleaners and magazines as a kid, you know, so it's like you get that, but at the same time, it's how do you properly vet out a company? Because I've seen companies that had great Google reviews, even some that had Better Business Bureau ratings that were decent that still didn't do the best of business. So what do you guys specifically look for whenever you're looking at people who are doing solar and installing it?
So I'll jump on that one first. So from the sales perspective, when I sit with a client, I let them know that I kind of inform them about what happened in the past. And so I decided that it was more important for me, for my clients, to find a company that can last through the peaks and the valleys, because there's a lot of them. And we can go back to November of 2022, which I like to call Solar D-Day, where the interest rates rose so high that everything shifted in the industry. And when things like that happen, companies go out of business, especially if you're a local installer operating in one state or one market. So if the laws were to change, hypothetically speaking, on net metering, that company more than likely is going to go out of business because their sales drop. So now the customer's stuck with, well, who's going to help me if something goes wrong?
Right,
Now, the warranties are from the manufacturer, but there's a maintenance and service warranty. And so if that company goes out of business, now the customer's left hanging, which I've seen a lot of. Okay? So I chose to go with a larger installer that operates in numerous states, because if one or two states change laws or things happen, the company's still going to be around. And so the first thing is I would look at the longevity of the company. How long have they been in business? How many installs have they done? What is
And is that information that like you can publicly see?
Absolutely,
on
yes.
there?
You can actually Google it. I mean, you know, Google is such an amazing thing nowadays. You can Google pretty much anything. I mean, and also look at where do they operate. Make sure they operate in more than one market. Look at the warranty, that the labor warranty that you're given.
That's a big thing. I think that happened personally in my neighborhood, where it's like there are people who had horrific experiences where, you know, we had the storms that came through and so many people had just gotten roof replacements, and all of a sudden they get solar, looking at the positive side of it, but then the negative effect was they voided their roof warranty. The company went out of business who installed the solar panels. They start having issue with the systems, and they're now running into all these different issues that they don't know how to handle, because now there's no company to reach out to. There's nobody honoring their word, you know?
There's also one more major piece to this. And as Zach said, financials, but a lot of times customers might not be able to find the financials on them. But there's one big piece. Make sure the company that you choose does their own installs.
Wow.
They do their own labor. Their labor is in-house. It is not subbed out. Because if it's subbed out, now you open yourself up to a myriad of problems.
And I think that was the biggest piece of the conversation I noticed that happened, was so many people said that. It was an argument between, you know, the roofing company who did the work and the solar company who did the work. Or the solar company was saying, hey, we just sold the job. That installer's long gone. So there was always this space between them and honoring what it was that they needed to do to fix the problem, you know. So that's important then, you know, making sure you have somebody who's doing everything all in 100%. One shot. Wow, that's
100%,
powerful.
100%.
That's powerful.
And unfortunately, to what Scott just mentioned, unfortunately, the fine print is not something that's always disclosed. And even though you have maybe somebody who knocked on your door, or even if it's somebody at your church, and you know, they all of a sudden now they're posting all over their social media that they're solar experts and come work with us, right? Obviously, that's a red flag. Like if someone literally was just working at a restaurant and now all of a sudden they're solar experts, it's a little bit of a red flag, right?
Absolutely,
But
yeah.
for whatever reason, I don't know what it is about the solar space, and you guys know I talk about this all the time. When you go to remodel your home, when you go to get your new bathroom updated or your kitchen updated, you ask like a friend or family member or a coworker, hey, I heard, maybe you just got something done. Would you recommend that guy? How was the experience? Things like that, right? For whatever reason, the solar industry, right? Someone just knocks on people's doors.
Right. Yeah.
Or someone just literally Googles like anybody, right? And regardless of reviews, we don't need to get into reviews because we all know reviews can be skewed, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Like for whatever reason, we got 500 Joes and 28 Sallys on the same review, and they changed 2 words on the same review. So we don't need to go down that
Or it's a
rabbit hole.
bot.
But so I don't know where the disconnect happened. Maybe because it was just new technology, and again, people, because it was new tech, people just felt that, hey, I'm willing to step out into the unknown here and try something different, even though I didn't go the same route that I would get a referral if I was remodeling my home or building a home.
Right.
And it is construction, by the way. Like it's not this mysterious unicorn.
100%, yeah.
It is construction. There are electrical permits. There's even specific solar permits. There's even structural permits that come with this industry. So whatever someone kind of told you at the kitchen table, they need to break that part down to you and slow down and say, hey, look, this is what the city or the county is going to do. They're going to come and inspect and go one by one with you to let you know what you should expect, right? And if someone's not really doing that, then you got to start questioning, really their goal or their intentions.
Are they fast talking you into a deal?
There's one way to really fix this, and I've been saying this forever. They should just make everybody who wants to sell solar get a license with the state. Just like mortgage license or real estate license, it would solve that problem because they'd be educated, number one. And number two, if they do something wrong, then they lose their license.
Yeah.
Nevada, Chicago, Illinois, we all know there's states that are starting to implement these rules, right?
100%.
Where, hey, this will follow your name, your social security number if you are a shady, right, illegitimate sales rep that's trying to push whatever initiative that makes you the most money instead of benefits the actual property owner the best.
Right.
And that's where that's where I defer, and I know Scott does as well. That's where we really defer. I'm in it to give you the best for your property, not just sell you what makes me the most money. Because at the end of the day, this isn't something that like I told you, like this is something that I knew was something for the rest of my life, my career. This wasn't a hobby. This wasn't something that I could run up and make some money so I could dump it into crypto or something crazy, right?
Right.
Like, no, this was actually, I know I want to do this the rest of my life. I want my children to be able to look back and see what their father has done and what he stood for. And the last thing I can do is be running around in Publix, and then I got to dodge behind the frozen peas when I see Mr. Johnson because I sold him a system that I knew it wasn't the right one for his house. But I'm like, oh.
I feel like a lot of these guys just fly in from all over. They're here for a few weeks, and they just, they kind of sell the deal, and then they're gone like a thief in the night.
Well, it's the truth. It's what it is. They do these blitzes.
But let me ask you guys this. So, cost has always been a big question in solar, right? Like how expensive the systems are, and I know there's different sizes of systems, but is cost the most important fact around solar? Because I remember at one point in time several years ago when I had first looked into solar, it was almost like taking a second mortgage out on a house. Like it was expensive to actually get it. And now that you've had financing programs and obviously interest rates have changed in the economy, like is it still something I should look at? Should I look at the cost of what a system is, or should I look at the quality of the system in comparison?
Yes
What do
and
you
no.
guys think?
So yes and no. You never want to go with the cheapest company. Let's put it that way. There's a reason why they're the cheapest. Why are they the cheapest? Because they're cutting corners. They might use lesser products. I was just talking to a customer the other day, and he got a quote from some company with total different inverters and batteries. And if you look those inverters up, even on Google, once again, Google's a great tool. You look it up and not even ranked in the top 10. And I had to explain this, and I said there's a reason why they're so inexpensive. And if you go get 5 other quotes, you're going to see that they are far below any other quote. So price is important because you don't want to get ripped off.
Right.
All right. But there's an average. There's a median that you can look up online. And you could see, all right, well, in my area, this is the median price. Now, anything around there, above it, below, just maybe a little below it, that's, in my opinion, price. That's when you have a good price.
Yeah.
Now, the way I look at it is this way. whether you finance solar or you lease solar, you're using the power company's money to buy it. Because if you don't go solar, you're paying the power company. So this is a bill you're already paying. But the greatest part about solar, in my opinion, is you're hedging against increases and inflation, and you're using someone else's money to do it. Money that's already coming out of your pocket, so you can put part of that back in, lock in a fixed cost. That even if you were to sell your house down the road, there's a fixed cost of electric.
Right.
It just makes sense to me.
Right.
Period.
And you know, that kind of segues me into the next thing. So I actually had a friend of mine who had solar installed and was under the impression that there sometimes is a federal tax credit attached to that. And they were under the impression that it was actually in the form of cash back, like a rebate to them. And boy, did they find out the hard way that is not how it worked. How does this federal tax credit actually work for those who can get it?
Oh, so I love this one. So
Yeah, it's one of my favorites as well.
I absolutely love this one. So again, from the vantage point that I have, right? Like,
Right.
We've ventured off and we've started, getting into for the past few years, like large scale systems, like people that like have farms, preppers, the stuff you watch on television on HGTV, like someone got a bunker and they have an ungodly amount of equipment under there. Those are the type of people that we've run into now. And it just gives us perspective, because those people that are on rural areas and farms, they've been taking advantage of grants for solar for years.
Wow.
And I mean grants that were giving them 65%
Wow.
of the total of the contract in a grant check cash.
Wow.
Okay? Now, the opposite of that would be, okay, I'm just a average residential person. I got a 3-2 house, man. I'm not looking to, build a UFO station on my house, okay? Can we just do something that, like, I'm paying $250, a month? What is it about solar that can help me in my $250? Point blank, right?
Absolutely.
And I love that, because it's very simple, and it should always be very simple, okay? $250 bill, that's anywhere between 18 to 25 solar panels that are going to be on your house, okay?
Okay.
Point blank. And that's how much it will be, how many panels that are going to basically generate enough power during the day that's going to total up how much you use even day and night. Point blank, right? So, and then if you choose, you can choose to put backup and whatnot, to attach to that. Yeah. Now, the federal government, they say, hey, look, because you decided to do some sort of sustainable home improvement, right? Doesn't matter if it's solar. It could be you did LED lights in your house. You could have got a new air conditioner. You could have got low impact, right? Low argon gas like windows that actually insulate the house better, or insulated your attic. All of these things, people don't understand that literally the federal government will give you 30% of whatever the contractor says the bill is, and say, hey, that is now on your taxes. You have a credit of whatever that is, whether it be $1,000, whether it be $40,000.
So just to be clear, it doesn't come in the form of any kind of rebate. It just gets applied to what you currently owe in
your
tax.
CPA, your H&R Block, I don't care who it is,
Okay.
right? Your TurboTax, right? It says, hey, you owe this much tax at the end of the year. We all
Right.
know what that is, right?
Right.
Now you get the luxury of saying, okay, if I owed 15 grand, right? I had a great year. I owe 15 grand to Uncle Sam, so to speak, right? But I got 10 grand that they gave me as a credit from my solar. So now I can apply that 10. I only owe 5,000 on my taxes
Wow.
this year.
Yeah, that works for
That
a lot
means
of people.
something.
Well,
That
yeah,
means
that means a
something, right?
lot.
So
Absolutely.
think of it this way. You ever have a store credit?
Yeah.
Do they give you cash for that?
No, usually goes on like a gift card
Because it's a
balance.
credit.
Right.
Now, one point I do want to touch on is W-2 versus 1099, because people say, all right, well, I don't owe any taxes at the end of the year, so I can't claim a tax credit. Well, that's incorrect. So if you're on a W-2, it's being taken out every 2 weeks or whatever your pay cycle is, and it's built up, and the IRS is holding that money, okay? So you've already paid it. Now, on the flip side, if you're a 1099 or self-employed, that's where, as Zach was talking about, you owe at the end of the year. Now, maybe you paid quarterly taxes, so you've already paid it. So if you've already paid in, you can get back. Okay? Now, obviously, take out, I'm not a tax attorney, I'm not a CPA, I can't give tax advice. Now, take out Social Security, Medicare, because that can never be taken back. That's the IRS, that's theirs. Now, whatever's left over after all of your credits from your children or whatever you have, whatever's left over is what you can get back. Okay? Now, if you don't pay income tax, or you're on Social Security or disability or something of that nature, then you cannot take advantage of tax credits.
Which a large amount of Florida residents, right? Because let's just be clear. We all know Florida for how many years has been one of the retirement capitals of the U.S. Right?
Absolutely.
So we have a large, almost half our population in the state of Florida that are retired. They cannot really benefit from the tax credit because they're not officially employed.
Are there options like
Yes,
for
there are.
systems that don't require the tax credit? I mean, how does that work?
Great segue.
So that's where leasing comes
Some
in.
good segues.
So when you lease, you don't own the system. All right?
Yeah.
The bank owns the system.
What's a lease?
So a lease is just like leasing a car. You don't own it. You have to give it back at the end. So whatever the term is. However, leasing has become a very popular product for a few reasons. Number one, you don't have to worry about claiming a tax credit and sending it into the bank to keep your payments low. You're already given a certain rate.
Right.
Now, that could be adjustable. It could be fixed, just like mortgages work. However, if anything ever goes wrong, you have an extra layer of protection because not only does the installer give you warranties, but now the bank has to service that. They have to maintain it, and they have to insure it. So if there's a hurricane, a tornado, anything, the bank takes out a policy to cover that for you. Okay? Now, let's say you happen to sell your home. That can transfer to the new buyer. All they have to have is a 650 credit score. But now they could take advantage of that same deal. Maybe it's a fixed rate.
Now,
It's locked in.
Let me ask you. That's a great question. So, like in buying a home, right? I know the last thing that my lender wants me to do is pull credit in the middle of that. So, if I'm the homeowner trying to sell a home with solar, how do they go about qualifying credit-wise to inherit the system through that process if I can't actually close my home by pulling the credit? How does that work?
That's a great question. So, you know how most people get pre-qualified. Most homeowners, especially now, plus they get home inspections. All of these things, it's much more rigid, right? Since we all, lived through the recession, and we know, especially, Scott having his finance background. That's why I love always giving him a call about certain, financing when it comes to this industry. But the facts are, you can actually take your pre-qualification because that's a certified document. That's not a make-believe bank document. And I've seen it where they accept that in the transfer instead of pulling it again. You get what I mean?
Okay.
They'll accept that you have a pre-qualified bank doc, and I've seen it at least 10 different times, specifically during, someone just got the system, right? And they're just now wanting to, for whatever reason, sell their home. Something might have happened, family member passed, whatever, medical emergency. Things do happen like that, where people made a great decision and they're like, but dang, now I got to sell my house.
So,
right?
like in the event, let's say in the event they aren't able to transfer, how do they go about, what do they do with the system in the middle of selling it?
So great question, but I want to backtrack for 1 second.
Okay.
When you're doing a lease, it's a soft pull on your credit.
Like a cell phone.
So it's not a hard inquiry.
Okay, so it's not a hard
No.
inquiry. So they're just grazing through a Credit Karma.
Yes. It's
Okay.
You have 650, boom, it passes. You just have to do it 30 days before you buy that house or move into that house. I'm sorry, repeat that other question you just asked.
So in the event that they go to sell the
Yes,
house,
okay.
yeah,
So if they go to sell the house and let's say for whatever reason the person can't qualify credit-wise or whatever the situation is, it could be paid off at closing. So they can have an appraiser come out, they appraise the value of the system, it gets paid off at closing, it comes out of seller proceeds. They might have to redo the contract to add it to it, but usually they know that ahead of time because you're supposed to, if you're going to transfer that lease, you're supposed to do it, fill out all the paperwork 30 days before closing.
okay,
So you're going to know ahead of time.
okay. Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, because I mean that's really the caveat, right? Like you make this great investment onto your home, adds the kind of value that you think. But that's another thing I've also heard of from realtor friends of mine, where it was the struggle trying to find its true value.
Yes.
To the
Yes.
home, and that's something where it's like common appraisals. You do all these upgrades and. Quite frankly, I don't always give you the value for certain
course.
things, but especially for a big investment like that, there's people that have paid cash for systems, and they're not getting the true value on the back end when they're trying to sell the home. So how do you?
I love this point.
I just want to jump real quick.
Go ahead.
So first off, there's a couple things I want to address here. Number one, realtors usually say it goes up 4%. Now I want to debunk this real fast. So let's say you have a 10 kilowatt system on a $200,000 house, and you have a 10 kilowatt system on a $1 million house. How can one system that produces the same energy as the other be valued at more or less than the other one? It doesn't make sense. So 4% of 200,000 is what? What is that? My brain's not working right now.
Yeah, you're
as far as
asking me
math.
questions.
Okay, let's say 100,000. So it's $8,000. So you're going to tell me that system's worth 8,000, but now on $1 million it's worth 40? Come on, that doesn't make sense.
No.
No.
No, it can't.
So
you can't be equated.
That's
that
the
way.
first
Yeah.
part. The second part is there are green appraisers. That's what they do for a living. They
green
appraise
appraiser.
I've been to numerous seminars from green appraisers, and even about 6 years ago, I remember one of them saying, any realtors who do not understand how to value a solar system is going to be left in the dust in the future.
Wow.
Plain and simple.
So a green appraiser.
Yes.
Wow.
You guys are hitting it right on the head.
Wow.
You have to.
Well, for all our realtor friends out there, you understand how important this is to hear this information. Being able to
Absolutely.
have a proper appraisal might be able to help you get through a deal.
Now let me ask you another
Wow.
question. If you put a bathroom in or a brand new kitchen, do you think you're getting 100% of the value of what you paid for that bathroom or kitchen?
Absolutely not. I already went
No,
through
of
that.
course not. And then the last part, before I pass over to Zach, is I love when people say, well, what if the new buyer doesn't want the solar? Well, what if the new buyer doesn't like your roof? What if the new buyer doesn't like the color of your kitchen or
driveway.
doesn't like the bathroom? They're not buying your house. Guess what? There's not one person that is like a soulmate to your home.
Wow.
There's numerous people who will want to buy it. Maybe you need to be a little more patient.
Yeah.
The right buyer will come along.
Setting the right expectation.
Well, especially if you look at the cost versus what the cost will be after the tax credit goes away at the end of this year, they won't be able to get that same deal. So in my opinion, it's a value proposition to buy a house that already has solar, because now you might have to spend a lot more money down the road.
Green appraisal. That's crazy.
I like when it comes to this. I absolutely love speaking about this because I like facts. Okay, and the public needs to have facts. They don't need to have hearsay. They don't need to have feelings or emotions about something. Just the facts and the numbers about it. Like he touched on something very simple. These realtors, literally, I've thousands of realtors I've been able to be blessed with, like getting to know, meet. We like literally we used to my partner and I used to host like networking events just to get mortgage brokers, realtors, and then all the ancillary, complimentary companies all in the same room for years. So I really understand where they're coming from. And unfortunately, I hate to say this, but it's just lackadaisical.
Yes.
If you are not actually doing your continuing education, right, and actually plugging in and seeing what your market is determining and giving back to you, and then making sure your education reflects that, that's lazy. And because and just a disclaimer, there's been a ton of deals out there from shady sales reps, bad paperwork that got signed, and it did really hurt and affect people, like in a real way when they went to sell their house.
Right. Yeah.
And they were made promises that, hey, this is 100% transferable, that don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's the
And
worries.
literally it says in the contract, we've all been in these kitchens, right?
Yep.
With homeowners, that it says right on their contract, it is not transferable. It needs to be 100% paid off if it transfers to anyone else, right? So there's just I don't want to say bad, but there's just misinformation, because that loan could have been a great loan for that individual if they were going to stay in their house.
Wow.
And maybe that's what they wanted, was the best or lowest price. which most people do. They want the most for
Yeah,
the
man,
less.
I'm trying to save money. I think that's the two things people wake up
the
and
American
think about.
way.
is-
It's the American
And
way.
then
Let
also-
me do the
Waking up
most. Let me get the most for the less.
That
right?
also goes back to people should have a license.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's deeper. It's deeper than just the accountability. This is what I'm getting at. It goes to, as an industry, if you see something, right? It's no different than if like every single person, let's just talk about Florida. We can talk about the rest of the nation later, but we're in Florida. If everyone in Florida decided, hey, I want to have a saltwater pool only, we're never going to have chlorinated pools in the state of Florida again, right? You think as a realtor who sells properties, you shouldn't be somewhat educated
Yes,
Yeah.
on saltwater pools
Right. Yeah, you're right.
and the
Yeah.
benefits.
absolutely.
But for whatever reason, we have an entire industry and we have all of this marketing that pops up when you look at homes now, right? The past 5 years, how many homes are talking about energy efficient? Energy
Right.
efficient
Yeah.
appliances.
Yeah. Almost every appliance.
Oh my
and-
God.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How are we starting to emphasize energy efficiency and we're not talking about one of the greatest things that can actually help you be more energy?
That, I mean, that's
Energy efficient.
actually really powerful
Yeah.
that you say that.
And then not actually going and getting the certification that you need to give advice. Like,
Yeah.
listen, this is facts. The National Realtors Association of America, okay? Literally 2024, the end of 2024, they came out with a ton of statistics, right? Because they asked, they did a survey of every realtor in the nation. About over 40, almost half, almost 50% came back and gave their opinion about, hey, what is it about sustainable construction, or what is it about energy efficiency? You know, what are the benefits? What are the pros, cons? You know, what do you guys think? And, you know, because you're out in the trenches, you're with these homeowners, right? 40% of them said, yes, we agree that having solar or having emergency backup power, whether it be, you know, through batteries, even generators, it helps us sell homes faster and better.
Wow.
They saw there's a value there,
That's
right?
that's incredible. Well, maybe you could touch on something for me, because I just found this out, and to me it just kind of struck me as odd, because you know, in such a common sense way, you would think because you have solar on your house, in the event that power goes out, you would still have it.
Oof.
And you know, I think there was a lot of people, because you know, in the generator space, that's typically a generator's role, right? Is the power goes out, you have some way to power up your home still after we identify that. But with solar, I think there's a lot of people that still feel that because you have panels, your home is still supposed to be powered. And what is the difference between having a battery and not having a battery?
Please,
So,
please.
I'm going to touch on one little piece, and I'll leave the rest to Zach, because he's the expert when it comes to this. So it really comes down to just being a safety precaution. So the reason why, solar doesn't work when the grid goes down if you do not have battery backup is because you're backfeeding electricity into the grid. Now let's imagine that grid is closed. There's nowhere to send it to. So if the panels were still on, it would be like a buildup of energy, right? And then you have the linemen working on the lines to get the power back up for everybody after a hurricane, for example, and they go to flick on the grid, and now there's all that power that's built up, and boom, power surge. You could electrocute that lineman working on the grid.
Wow. Okay.
And number two, you could blow transformers and everybody's out of power for longer. So it's for safety purposes. When the grid goes down, it's like the grid speaks to all the inverters that are attached to the grid and says, go into standby mode, turn off.
Wow.
Shout out to all my people out there that your kid stuck something in the outlet and something popped, and you gotta go.
I've done that.
I was one of those
I did that.
children.
You kind of look like one of those.
I
Both of
definitely
y'all look
will.
I did it at school, 5th grade.
Yeah. So straight up and down, guys. Look, it's no different. Your kid popped something in the outlet. The outlet popped, breaker, tripped, right?
Yep.
Right? You got to go run over to the breaker panel, look at all of these breakers. They look confusing, right? And find the one that's in the off position, okay? Now, if you're somewhat savvy, You're gonna go to YouTube University. You're gonna look up how do I fix a blown outlet, right?
Right.
My kid stuck something in there. It's shorted. How do I fix a blown outlet? First thing they're gonna tell you, make sure the power is off. Go to your breaker panel, your load center is what they call it, and find the tripped breaker that's in the off position. Leave it off, and then we'll walk you through step by step how to change out that outlet if the outlet was damaged, right?
Right.
And then what do? Once the damage has been repaired, no different than your local utility company that was working countless hours, 24 hours, 6 different shifts after a natural disaster to get your community back up and running, right? These guys, God bless these guys,
Yes,
man.
agreed.
The amount of work that they pour into and what they have to do to leave their families to come out and pour into communities that half the time they're not even their community. Half the time these guys
Exactly.
are
True.
traveling 5-6 states over.
I've
just
seen
to
some
come
of the
to you.
staging areas where
Yeah.
these guys are living, and I mean, good gosh, the kind of facilities that they live in, I mean, they're nothing high end. Most of the time it's RVs with several guys living in it, and I mean, they're just
Amazing people.
amazing human beings for the kind of work that they have to endure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
God bless them, man. God bless them. So,
Absolutely.
So, God forbid you have solar on your home, okay? You don't have an emergency backup system connected to your solar. Let's just be clear, okay? You only have solar. You're cranking. Sun comes back up. What happens usually after a storm? It's like the clearest day ever.
Yeah, it
It's
takes
like
the bad
best-
weather with it.
But it takes all the clouds away, right? It's beaming, optimal, best day for solar. It's cranking. These guys are dispatched, right? They've been working since the night before, overnight, right? Sleep deprived, okay? And their dispatch is sending them on the radio and on their phones like, hey, this sector, this grid, that's why they call it the grid, right? They give these guys maps of the electrical grid, and they tell them sectors that are supposedly been shut off. They're not sending any power. It hits a transfer station, and at that transfer station, it shuts the power off to your community. So they believe, hey, no matter what we do out there, I'm safe if I jump up there and start grabbing wires.
Right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, if your solar system is cranking and sending power back to attest to what Scott just said, they don't know that. Okay? So that's why it's in the National Electric Code. This isn't like a localized thing. The National Electric Code, it demands that you have to have something there to either block your solar from going to the rest of the community, or your system has to automatically shut off when it doesn't feel the power from the grid hitting it.
Right.
Automatically.
Or the third option would be the battery option, right? So having a battery essentially is compared to having a generator, except the
100%.
solar is feeding it,
100%.
right?
That was genius. That's
Yeah.
that is the most genius comparison
Right.
Scott knows this. I've been an advocate for batteries.
Don't get him started.
For years, okay? I had to drag him kicking and screaming for the past 2.5 years, okay? We had to get hit with 3 more hurricanes to where Scott said, man, you know what? One of these days, you mind if we just kind of, put some time aside so we can kind of talk about batteries and whatnot? I'm like, I swear, I thought it was a sign, right? So, long story short, we put in a couple thousand batteries, right? We were kind of that contractor that said, hey, way before the curve, right, where everybody and their mother is trying to sling you a Tesla battery right now, a Powerwall 3 right now. Like everybody and their mother wants to get you a Tesla Powerwall 3. And thank God they finally came out, Tesla finally came out with a battery that does everything that
it
the
says it's
description
gonna do?
says
Yeah. Right.
from the first battery, because the first battery was atrocious.
Right.
Like everybody in the industry that touches the equipment, it was atrocious.
So
okay?
so let's say I have my home, right? 1,500 square foot home. I got 25 panels on my home. Is one battery sufficient enough for me? Do you have to have numerous batteries? Like what is the real comparison, right? Because it's like for me personally, like having a generator has always been the tool, right? You just plug up the refrigerator, some of the main hot spots in the house, and you're just glad you have something. But the idea of having convenience, and especially when you have whole home generators that are, in some of these larger communities here in the state that power up the whole home.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing all kinds of issues with those now too, where I know they cycle on a test throughout the course of the week, but at the same time, we had a family member, a neighbor of ours, who literally had issues where the belt on the thing went out, and he no longer had a generator.
It happens.
So it defeated the purpose of spending that kind of, you're talking 20 grand plus on this stuff. So what is the real comparison with batteries? Do you need 1? Do you need 5? Like, how do you really gauge how much you need?
Well, to answer the first question, right?
Yeah.
1,500 square foot house, like you said, average family living inside, because that does matter, by the way.
Okay.
You can have a gated community, cookie cutter houses, and you got the same exact model house with a family of 8, you know what I mean? And then you got a family of just 3.
Right.
They're going to have different usage.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So that whole equation, or that thought of in people's minds,
Square feet.
right? Of I got the same house. Why is it that he's charging my neighbor this much more for their system than he is for me? Because that's a real question that people come to me about, and they get offended.
Yeah, I can imagine.
they get emboldened when they talk to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, how many people live there? Well, okay, do they keep their house on polar bear, 60 degrees?
That's the big one right there. Is the AC.
We live in Florida.
Wow. You're running it at 69, you're running it at 75. You're talking about maybe even $75 to $100 difference per month.
Wow.
Just from the AC alone.
We live in Florida. Our air conditioners are on 85% of the year.
Yep.
We only get about a sliver of 30 days where we get a little bit of cold. You can leave your windows open, kind of like up north in the fall, right? It's a nice, cool fall day. It's about the worst Florida usually gets, unless you're in the Panhandle, which that's not Florida. I'm sorry. I don't know how y'all call that Florida.
Sorry, Panhandle
It
friends
snowed
out
in the
there.
Panhandle. Stop playing.
Yeah.
So, anyways, love y'all though. I love y'all. It's getting very beautiful up there, by the way, over by Panama City and everything. The rebuild effort's beautiful up there.
Yeah.
Anyways, I love y'all. And what I want to touch really, what matters is that you only need usually the average home. And I'm going to use Tesla, even though I don't want to. I'm going to say Tesla because I know everybody listening has looked at a Tesla battery.
Yep.
Right.
So I'm going to use Tesla as a prime example. Great new battery they have. One battery, by the way, on an average home, 1,500 square foot home, maybe they got about a $200 bill, right?
Right.
Yes, one battery could technically service their home to get them through the night, okay? Now, do you got to be a little mindful and a little smart about, hey, we don't have power in our whole city right now. Maybe I should be a little mindful and smart about how I use my power. How about we not use the oven when we got an air fryer? Or we got a hot plate.
Or the dishwasher.
Or
the washer and dryer.
My personal favorite,
So kind
George
of,
Foreman. I like my Foreman. I
Yes.
like to, get the grill marks
or
on
like
that thing.
like our folks used to say, "Hey, turn off the lights in the room." And
Yes, you got. Listen, he said it right. You got to be mindful about what you're
Mindful.
using.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pick and choose the appliances you want, because look at it this way: this is not the time to act like you're living at the Four Seasons. This is more of surviving time, but you want to be comfortable.
Right.
So
right.
your AC is going to pull a lot. You might not want to run it at 72. You might want to run it at 77, and then have some fans on, help
Yep.
to circulate the air.
Yep.
You're not operating as if you would normally operate.
100%.
See, I love this. I love the whole conversation we're having around this, because if you really think, as a homeowner, we all want the best investment for our home, and especially down here. And I know there's other parts of the country that see natural disaster all the time, but for us in particular, we have gone over the past several years adding months of no power. City of Cape Coral had months of no power in some areas where the lines were down that bad. And you heard the horror stories about trying to get fuel for the generators because there was no fuel. It couldn't be trucked in, or having mechanical issues and not being able to get it repaired.
Yep.
And even in some cases, there was flooding that took place where it flooded out the stationary generators.
Wow.
Don't get me started.
So it's like, that was one thing that stuck out to me with the batteries. Like I saw them mounted on the side of the home, or I saw them mounted up higher up in the garage.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So these are the kind of things that I think people need to hear about, because it shows the true benefit of if you are mindful and educate yourself properly with solar,
Yeah.
it could be a real long-term tool, not just a good investment to your house, but it can save you out of an emergency situation.
You know what you said long term. You know what's great, and a lot of people don't realize this. People think like you have to replace the panels in 10 years. At year 25, and I want to make this crystal clear. At year 25, worst case scenario, you have 85% of life of those panels. 85%. Now think about it in terms of an AC. If your AC operated the way panels do as far as like degrading, you would never change your AC.
Right.
But you do every 5-6 years replace your AC.
Yeah, worst case 10 to 12.
Yeah.
Well, speaking on the word replacement,
Yeah.
insurance has gotten more cynical than it has ever been over the past several years. And we're seeing a lot of changes that are taking place in the industry. A lot of claims are not getting paid. It's been a nightmare for everybody, even the attorneys and the adjusters trying to help. How does insurance and solar tie together? What does that look like, being able to add this stuff to a policy? Is it covered?
So-
how does that work?
So personally, 50% of what we do as a business, right, at our construction company, and what I've specialized in for 21 years, we work directly with insurance attorneys, adjusters, and also with the public adjusters that help the actual homeowners if they run into a situation where, unfortunately, it does happen. Their insurance carrier sends out a person who might be inexperienced, the adjuster, to look at their property, or they, for whatever reason, we don't want to go in that rabbit hole, but maybe they're just trying to hit a quota. They make a certain amount of money per day, and they got to see as many people as they can after these natural disasters that have ravaged Florida, Texas. I mean, God, look what just happened in Texas with these floods.
Yeah.
But this is, again, the power goes out in those communities again. And I mean, just look what happened in Houston barely just a year ago. We were
just there.
We were there.
Today I was on a flight last year.
We
headed to Houston.
We were there. We were there, boots on the ground, right? And look this actually ties in what we just spoke about with batteries and what's happening with insurance, right? FEMA. Everybody knows FEMA from started remembering more from Hurricane Katrina, right? That's when it was really kind of prominent about FEMA, and we know Kanye and all of that, stuff that he said when he was talking. But long story short, Houston, literally their generators, right, and the insurance companies, they had over 11,000 generators that never even turned on when Houston got hit.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Okay, and these numbers are from FEMA. We don't need the and that's just people who actually, when they went to the little tents that FEMA set up in their communities to try to give them help and resource, they just happened to remember that they told FEMA that, right? You know how many people probably didn't even mention it to them?
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
You understand what I mean? And where they got flooded out, or they just never turned on. Because these are mechanical items, just no different than when we were growing up, and some of us came up very humble, and my mother had an old, Buick station wagon, 1989, and it was a hope and a prayer every morning. She'd tell me to go warm that thing up in Illinois in the wintertime, an hour before we need to go wherever we're going. You get what I mean?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so it's no different. Like it's why would you want equipment on your home that takes a hope and a prayer if it's going to start when you need it?
Right.
And this is the thing that nobody wants to talk about when they sell you a generator, is that you have to actually test your generator on a regular basis. Right? And then on top of that, then you got to put a fuel source for your generator, right? And if most communities, they don't always have like natural gas resource. You got to get these huge propane tanks that you got to store on your property, and whatever, bury underground. Same thing to me, because you know what happened. You mentioned it earlier. What happened in these natural disasters that hit Florida?
Yeah, everything got flooded
We
out.
saw it on the news.
Yeah.
We saw it on the news, though. Because of the debris, there were curfews. And when there are curfews in place, these gas and these natural gas providers, they're not even allowed on the roads. It has to be ideal conditions for these companies to be able to travel, because they have, hazardous hazardous material that they're carrying. It can't be a tree or a boat. We saw boats
Yeah, we did see
literally
those
in the middle
50-foot yachts
of,
That's
of,
crazy.
of in the middle of the
intersection.
street,
Yeah.
right? So and it makes sense. That just makes common sense, but people don't know this. So we had people that had massive generators, massive fuel tanks. They lasted 5, maybe 6 days at the most, the biggest systems. And look what happened. We were out of power some 30, 45 days in some of these communities that we lived in,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
And what happened to their generator? It was a beautiful 1,000-pound paperweight.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally worthless.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
like just like you said, you have to test it. It's like if you have a car, you don't drive it for a few years, you leave it sitting.
Yeah.
You tell me how well that engine works.
Well, that kind of segues me into my next conversation about, I think about like, Florida being, I like to joke and say this, so be easy on me. It's the home of the newlywed and the nearly dead. Right? There's a lot of people who love to come.
Love you,
and-
Grandma.
There's a lot of people that do love to come and retire in our state,
Yeah.
right? Like we are. This is a magnet for hospitality, but more importantly, like we love to enjoy everything that's here. But I really think of the 55 and up communities that are struggling in situations like that, where they're dependent on a generator, hospitals that are dependent on a
Yeah.
generator, and not having the ability to use that. And I know both of you have kind of, leveled up in the solar space and graduated into the commercial side of things. I know there was that building that you just did in Fort Myers where you put a whole football field of panels on top of that thing. But where is really the future of solar going when it comes to commercial and medical needs in that sense?
I'll leave this one for you.
Well, shout out to Scott because he actually plugged me in with his auntie, and we just started kind of the process of her kind of helping us and pointing us in the right direction to really go right after some of these big medical facilities because she's been in that space a long time, because it's just facts. Like our equipment turns on in milliseconds. Less than 10 milliseconds, the majority of all
That's crazy.
like sustainable solar battery backup systems. Okay,
Right.
even if you cut the solar out and you just put these batteries on these buildings, let's just be clear. Like, we want to promote and be there for people with what they need.
Right.
It's not about over trying to sell someone something it's not the necessity of what they need.
Well, I think of things like apartments and condos, though. So if I look at an apartment building, you got 100 units in the apartment, but there's not a lot of roof space. What do you do in a situation like that where they need the same level of service? And ironically enough, I'm surprised that we have so many 55 and up communities that are
Yeah.
20 stories tall, where there's people that are a little bit more handicapped in the ability of
Yeah.
moving with
Yeah, they can't go up and
urgency.
down the stairs.
Right. And
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
how do you facilitate something like that?
I mean, this is where again we have to go back to what is the building need, what does the community need, right? Because that's a community in itself. Some of these buildings, these 55 plus buildings, I mean, sometimes there's 100 units in these buildings. So the second that you go multiple floors up, okay, the roof where we normally like to put the solar, right? There's usually not enough roof space
Right.
that we can eliminate all of those multiple floors of electricity that's being used, right? It's different than a home where there's just one single family living in there and then they have the roof space, and usually we have enough room to put enough panels to eliminate their electric bill, right? So that's usually out of the equation sometimes, but there's still the flip side of that. Well, why don't we just put enough panels on the roof or wherever on the property to actually then put the battery system,
Yes.
the emergency system, that's going to be there for them when their elevators shut down,
Right.
when their emergency lighting in the hallway, those little batteries that go inside of those exit signs don't always work, right? The lighting in general to get out of the building, right? Or maybe we're talking about there's motorized gates, right? Because some of these inner cities, they have motorized gates that they can't get their cars out of the parking garage
Right.
because there's no power. And again, the generator, because usually sometimes they'll have a generator, sometimes they don't. and sometimes the generator doesn't
work.
kick on.
Right.
So
Right.
why would you not want something that's just it's electrical? It just works.
Yeah, and it's like I had the pleasure of being with you and working hand in hand with you down here in Wilton Manors with one of the first of its kind, the carport solar system.
Oh yeah.
And that was the first one, I believe, that was built that far south.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
know,
yeah.
of its kind. But I really thought of that when it comes to, you know, using a condo's parking lot. You know, I mean, I think that would be a great way. Like, you have all these utility companies taking all this land up right now. And it shouts out to the local utility company here in the state of Florida. You know, a lot of the preserved land is being taken up by
Yeah.
putting these panels when really we have parking lots that could be
Yeah.
covered and have panels on it.
Yeah.
Scott,
you know?
Scott knows this. Like, one of the first things I kept repeating and repeating and repeating. We were all in California together, right? And I kept repeating every other office complex we go past. I'm like, look at the solar carports. Look at the solar carports. Look at the solar carports. All of the parking lots, even when you fly into Cali, okay? No matter how you feel about California, by the way, just by me even saying that word, and we're on the East Coast, it's irrelevant. It makes sense. They're facts. It's a dead space.
Right, right.
So one, it services people where their car is a little safer, right? And if we're gonna be committing to this whole electrify America, right? Which the cat's pretty much out of the bag for that. I think we can all agree, right? Like you ask a 16-year-old who's getting a license in America, I couldn't believe this. Where they said across the nation, the number one car that their dream car is, as opposed to we wanted to get Lamborghinis and Ferraris when we were growing up.
Yeah.
They want a Tesla.
Yeah, I was an Aston Martin kid, so, you know.
Well, you know, you kind of got that, little
James
bougie-
Bond thing going
You
on.
got that bougie thing. But I these are just facts, guys.
Yeah.
Like, these are facts, and my jaw hit the floor. I said, "Wow, how are we gonna? We can't facilitate that many. If even every 16-year-old getting a license in the United States got a Tesla, we can't facilitate.
Well, the
charging
problem is
all
the
those
grid.
vehicles.
The grid infrastructure needs to be rebuilt and it needs to be changed. And you can even,
And
it's
how
funny.
expensive is that going to
It's
be?
it's going to cost a fortune. It's
Well,
part of all the increases that are going to happen.
That's
Yeah.
another thing real quick was I just saw that the largest utility in the state of Florida has introduced it's the largest increase in U.S. history.
Correct.
And they're doing it because of the grid needing to be upgraded and because of the solar fields that they have already built and are continuing to build.
Yep.
But ultimately, no matter how you spin that, we as consumers have to pay for that.
Of course.
You know, so it's almost like solar is our only option to kind of
Hedge against
hedge
that.
against it.
There you go.
You know, we
Yeah.
don't have a choice but to,
Yeah.
to make that decision or pay the price later.
And the way I look at it is this. First of all, electric rates are always going to go up. And they're going to go up forever. It's never going to stop. And there's nothing you can do about it. You can't say, I'm not going to pay the bill. They'll turn your lights off. But that's why at the beginning when we started, I said hedging against increases in inflation, etc. However, as rates go up, so does the cost of solar. So the rate that you can get today is not the rate that you're going to be able to get 5 years from now.
Right.
And so how long do you want to lose that hard-earned money that you're spending? Because keep in mind, you have to spend the money. You don't need to buy solar cash. I don't care if you lease it. It's better than paying electric rates and watching them go up.
Okay. Well, guys, that's our time for the day, and I want to thank both of you gentlemen,
thank
for
you.
one, just being advocates of solar the way that you are. You don't just make a difference in the lives of the community. You literally are revolutionizing a whole industry and bringing it to a level all of us can understand. And we're so grateful for that. So, if you guys ever want to reach out and get in touch with somebody like Zach who understands this and is actively installing every day, it's Arc Eco Construction and Roofing on this side. You have Go Solar Scott Summers, you can find him Facebook, Instagram, and I'm sure in the coming future he will have his own website that is Go Solar Scott. But we want to thank you for your time. Big shouts out to Devon Frazier
Yes.
and the Co-Creative Space for letting us, use this beautiful podcast facility. Love what he's been doing in the Sistrunk area, and thank you guys for your time. Look forward to the next
Absolutely.
one.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Not bad, Scott. Not bad.